Hey guys, we are out at the Hineston branch today, and for story time we have Miss Jeanette. So take it away, Miss Jeanette.
Hi, today I wanted to share with you a Raggedy Ann story. For anyone who likes to make your own toys, Raggedy Ann began a long time ago when people had to make their toys. She was a doll that was made out of cloth and stuffed with cotton. As you can see, she does all kinds of things. And she was sitting in a closet in her grandmother's attic, and little Marcella was discovering what was in grandmother's closet one day, and she found Raggedy Ann. And grandmother helped her clean up Raggedy Ann and said, "You can have her." And these stories, many of them, come from Johnny Gruel, and my favorite, absolute favorite, is Raggedy Ann and the Painter. When house cleaning time came along, Mistress Mama decided that she would have the nursery repainted and new paper put on the walls. That was why all the dolls happened to be laid helter-skelter upon one of the high shelves. Mistress had been in to look at them and wished to put them to bed. But as the painters were coming the next morning, Mama thought it would be best that they all went to the closet. So the dolls' beds were piled into the closet, one on top of another, and the dolls were placed upon the high shelf. When all was quiet that night, Raggedy Ann, who was on the bottom of the pile, spoke softly and she said, "Would you mind moving along the shelf? The cotton in my body's getting mashed as flat as a pancake." And although the tin soldier was piled so that his foot was pressed into Raggedy's face, she still wore her customary smile. So the dolls began moving off to one side until Raggedy Ann was free to sit up. "Oh, that's a good deal," she said, and she stretched her arms and legs to get the kinks out of them and patted her dress into shape. "Well," she said, "I'll be glad when morning comes, for I know Mistress will take us out in the yard and play with us under the trees." So the dolls sat and talked until daylight when the painters came to work. One of the painters, a very young fella, saw the dolls and he reached up and took Raggedy Ann down from the shelf. "Jim, look at this rag doll. She's a daisy." And he took Raggedy Ann by the hands and danced with her while he whistled a lively tune. Raggedy Ann's heels hit the floor, thumpity-thump-thump, and she enjoyed it immensely. And the other dolls sat upon the shelf, and one of them said to the man, "Better put her back upon the shelf. You'll have the little girl after you. The chances are that she likes that old rag doll better than any of the others." But the young painter twisted Raggedy Ann into funny attitudes and laughed as she looped about. And finally he got to tossing her up in the air and catching her. This was great fun for Raggedy, and as she sailed up by the shelf, the dolls all smiled at her, for it pleased them whenever Raggedy was happy. But the young fella threw Raggedy Ann up into the air once too often. And when she came down, he failed to catch her, and she came down splash, head first, into a bucket of oily paint. And the older painter said, "I told you, and now you are in for it." "My goodness, I didn't mean to do it. What had I better do with her?" And the other painter said, "Better put her back on the shelf." So Raggedy was placed back onto the shelf with the paint running down from her head and trickled all the way down her dress. Well, after breakfast, Mistress came into the nursery and saw Raggedy all covered with paint, and she began crying. The young painter felt sorry and told her how it had happened. "If you will let me, I will take her home with me and will clean her up tonight and will bring her back day after tomorrow." So Raggedy was wrapped in a newspaper that evening and carried away. All the dolls felt sad that night without Raggedy Ann near them. "Poor Raggedy," said the French doll. "I could have cried when I saw her all covered with paint." "She didn't look like our dear old Raggedy Ann at all," said the tin soldier, who wiped the tears from his eyes. so that they would not run down his arms and rust them. And the paint covered her lovely smile and nose, and you could not see the laughter in her shoe-button eyes, said the Indian doll. And so the dolls talked that night and the next, but of course in the daytime when the painters were there, they kept very quiet. The second day, Raggedy was brought home, and the dolls were all anxious for night to come so that they could see and talk with Raggedy Ann. At last, the painters left and the house was quiet, for the mistress had been in and placed Raggedy on the shelf with the other dolls. Tell us all about it, Raggedy dear. Oh, I'm so glad I fell in the paint, for I have had the happiest time. The painter took me home and told his mama how I happened to be covered with paint, and she was very sorry. She took a rag and wiped off my shoe-button eyes, and then I saw that she was a very pretty, sweet-faced lady, and she got some cleaner and wiped off most of the paint off my face. But you know, Raggedy continued, the paint had soaked through my rag head and had made the cotton inside all sticky and soggy. And I could not think clearly, and my yarn hair was all matted with paint. So the kind lady took off my yarn hair and cut the stitches out of my head and took out all the painty cotton. It was a great relief, although it felt strange at first and my thoughts seemed scattered. She left me in her work basket that night and hung me out upon the clothesline the next morning when she had washed the last of the paint off. And while I hung out on the clothesline, what do you think happened? And the dolls said we could never guess. Why, a dear little Jenny Wren came and picked some of the cotton out of me to make a cute little cuddly nest in the grape arbor. Oh, wasn't that sweet? Cried all the dolls. Yes, indeed it was. It made me very happy. And then when the lady took me in the house again, she stuffed me with the lovely, nice new cotton all the way from my knees and sewed me up and put new yarn on my hair. And it's a secret, said Raggedy Ann. Oh, tell us the secret, cried all the dolls as they pressed closer to Raggedy. Well, I know you will not tell anyone who would not be glad to know about it, so I will tell you the secret and why I'm wearing my smile a trifle broader. The dolls all said that Raggedy Ann's smile was indeed a quarter of an inch wider on each side. When the dear lady put the new whitened cotton in my body, she went to the cupboard and came back with a paper bag, and she took from the bag 10 or 15 little candy hearts with mottos on them. And she hunted through the candy hearts until she found a beautiful red one, which she sewed up in me with the cotton. So that's the secret, and that is why I'm so happy. Feel here, she said, and all the dolls could feel Raggedy Ann's beautiful new candy heart, and they were very happy for her. After all of them had hugged each other good night and cuddled up for the night, the tin soldier said, "Did you have a chance to see what the motto on your new candy heart was, Raggedy Ann?" "Oh, yes. I was so happy I forgot to tell you." It had printed upon it in nice blue letters, "I love you." And Raggedy Ann says, "I love you too. Have a great day."